The watch world can now be boiled down into two distinct periods. There's before MoonSwatch and after MoonSwatch.
I got lucky. There was a lot of pushing and shoving.
I came down, took about 4 hours, waited in line for 22 hours.
The hype is real. People are really excited about this. We're talking about the MoonSwatch here.
Oh my God.
In short, this release caused pandemonium unlike anything we've ever seen in the watch world ever. And the question then becomes, why? Well, of course, I have a few theories, and it turns out that a bunch of other people do too. This is a special week on the wrist with the Omega Swatch MoonSwatch. This was literally a phenomenon. I mean, people that I know that I haven't talked to in years that have nothing to do with watches came out of the woodwork to ask me about the MoonSwatch. Where can I buy one? What is it? Even in Times Square, a month after the watch was released, people still can't stop talking about it.
So have you heard of the Omega Swatch MoonSwatch?
Of course.
No, you never heard about it?
No, I'm sorry.
It's right over there in that store. It's Omega and Swatch. Do you know Swatch?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of the Omega and Swatch, the collab. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, about the collaboration.
Yeah.
It looks like this.
Oh my God.
I happen to be wearing two of them right now, if you guys want to see. So I got
Every time I see it, I'm like, what could they possibly want to wait in line that long for?
Did you come here today expecting it would be here?
I came here hoping it would be here, not expecting.
What do you think about people who go and wait in those lines just to flip it online?
See, I don't. Those are the people I don't like.
What are your initial thoughts here?
You know what? Pretty sophisticated for Swatch, so.
If you can't afford that piece of history, but you still want to be related to the history of moon and space travel and all that, you get one of these. They're fun, they're not anywhere near as expensive.
Well, I'm the naked cowboy here with MoonSwatch.
What caused a vague marketing campaign to become the most talked about watch in the world? Here are a few theories. Reason number one is it's a carbon copy of a Speedmaster. Sort of. If you're a Speedmaster lover, you're gonna spot this watch from across the room because you know the classic Moonwatch, which I happen to have on my wrist today. You're gonna notice off the bat the sort of lyre lug design. You can see it's sort of a one-to-one replica here. Even if you've never seen the Speedmaster before, something about this design is gonna make you stop in your tracks. It's iconic for a reason. It's just interesting. Of course, the elements in the design between these two are not identical, and that's because Speedmasters are inherently collectible, which means that some of these MoonSwatches are based on collectible Speedmasters. In this case, I'm holding the mission to Mars. Some people have already taken notice that this takes a lot of its design from a Speedmaster Alaska project, a highly collectible variation of Speedmaster. The second model that we have today is the mission to Jupiter. It's sort of a sand-colored, khaki-colored case, very desert-like qualities, but as some have pointed out as well, you can pick out some of the Speedmaster Ultraman in here by way of the orange hands. At the end of the day, all of these watches come back to one single watch, the Omega Moonwatch. I mean, this is the watch that has most of the DNA you're gonna find across the entire MoonSwatch collection. The second reason is it's inexpensive. I mean, it's as simple as that. You look at the original Moonwatch and you're looking at a $6,300 watch retail, and you're getting all of this design, all the feel, the same wrist experience, really, for $260.
I mean, you can conceivably put a strap that costs more than the watch itself onto this watch, and that is just fun. So I picked out a couple colored straps that we have here in the Hodinkee shop, and we're just gonna see how they look, how they read, how they change the MoonSwatch.
So what makes this cost $260? Well, so much of it, as any swatch would be, is the materials that are used. We're not talking about stainless steel or precious metals, we're talking about bioceramic, which is a nifty combination of ceramic and plastic, which is very light. The next thing is the movement inside. The Speedmaster has always been known for its famous manual winding calibers. No one's gonna know what the caliber in this watch is, and that's just not the point. It's quartz powered, it has a battery, the battery pack is covered by an image of a planet, and it just makes the watch tick. The third reason is drop culture hit the watch world, and all of the hype kids were just ready and waiting to jump on the next watch. It had a similar kind of marketing strategy behind it where it dropped, and people showed up for it. If it takes pitching a tent in line, so be it. If it takes standing for 18 hours, it's what it takes. And that was something I saw firsthand when I was in Times Square on Saturday when MoonSwatch launched. I saw a lot of kids ages 17 to 24 who I never would have expected to be interested in watches, but I think they're interested in hype. It kind of created a collector's item around the MoonSwatch by issuing a challenge to all prospective buyers. The day that the watch was set to launch, signs were posted in stores all across the world that you could only buy one, which means that you couldn't buy them all. Which also means that if you wanted to, you had to try really, really hard to get them all.
This release also brought out flippers. People who wanted to buy a MoonSwatch just to turn it around and sell it for a profit.
How much are you selling the watches for?
1,100.
The opportunism behind flipping is sort of a result of the hype, but at the same time, it drives hype.
What is the most amount of money will go down for each of you that each of you would pay for a MoonSwatch on the secondary market?
600.
Maybe 400.
500, I think.
Yeah, 500.
Yeah, 500 bucks.
Reason number 4 is this was a masterclass in marketing, and there's really no other way to put it. In the lead up to this release, we saw cryptic social media posts on Instagram where there were these sort of videos about replacing your swatch, replacing your Omega, buy a new swatch, buy a new Omega. They put full page ads in the New York Times, which means they were hitting everyone from Gen Z to millennials to baby boomers who still read print. It's all there and it was all ready. People knew what this was, and it only took a week for the hype to really take off. At the end of the day, there's truth to all of these theories. Every single one of them reigns true. But we have to look at a watch like this outside of the hype. So what is it? What do I think of it? Well, I think it's just a really interesting product. If you're able to take the DNA and the history of a Speedmaster and boil it down into something as accessible as the MoonSwatch, I think that's extremely interesting. Now, there's a lot of people out there that cry foul, well, this is gonna dilute the Omega brand. Sitting here at this table with 2 MoonSwatches and a Speedmaster, I can tell you that is absolutely not true. I mean, there is an obvious difference between a Speedmaster and a MoonSwatch. I mean, I'm holding one in each hand. One's heavier than the other, for example. One has a lot more history, one has a lot more watchmaking inside of it. So for the watch lover, the Speedy's always going to be there. But if you're already a Speedmaster owner, you can get the same satisfaction of owning both. And there's not many other watches out there, maybe there are 0 watches out there that can do that. This is a quote-unquote affordable watch, and with that affordability comes some drawbacks, some things where the seams kind of fall apart, where you can pull the strings and the whole thing sort of falls apart. And you see that in the bezel, which looks basically, to my eye, like a sticker. I haven't been able to find where I can peel that sticker, but looking at it, it really seems to be one. I think that for all those who said that the MoonSwatch would dilute the value of the Speedmaster, that point goes to why I think that the quality of this watch, despite the price, is a little bit lower. I think if you made this watch more robust, more capable, stronger feeling, heavier, there might be a point where this would have reached the level of, well, I would just buy this before I'd buy a Speedmaster. But when you hold this in your hand, you know. I mean, this ain't no Speedmaster, and I'd know. The watch still has the chronograph function. It's functionally a chronograph. So when you engage the top pusher, you'll notice that the chronograph seconds hand begins to tick, and it's ticking because it's a quartz movement. And you know, some people who grew up with swatches and had swatch chronographs are gonna recognize that because it's exactly what you've had before. It's your introduction to watches, your introduction to how a chronograph works. And the slow tick is actually a really interesting way to get into that. When you stop it, the top register is gonna wind around and land on the millisecond reading. It's not gonna do it live, but it's gonna show you where it's gonna land so you'll know. And when you hit the bottom pusher to reset, everything kind of goes back into place, which is really fun to watch. I've had the chance to experience both the Jupiter and the mission to Mars, and I think the mission to Mars is the one that got the lion's share of attention on social media, on Instagram, on our Hodinkee story, which, you know, I see why. It's reminiscent of that old Alaska Project Speedmaster. It's loud, it's bold, it's red, it has the white strap and the white dial and those capsule seconds hands. But to me, it's one of those watches that looks great on the table, and then I lose some of that juice when I put it on my wrist. Conversely, this watch did nothing for me in pictures, did nothing for me when I first saw it, and then I strapped it on my wrist and something just changed. The black strap, the sort of tan coloration, it looks nothing like an actual Speedmaster except for all the design elements we've already talked about, but just something about it works. I'm not just a watch writer, I'm a watch enthusiast. You know, the stories behind watches matter. The way I got into this entire thing was that I had a watch passed down to me by my grandfather. These things are important. And the MoonSwatch has history behind it.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Even if it's different, it's imbued with the spirit of the Speedmaster. And if I think anything, it's that this is just another chapter in the history of watches. Watches endure, and the MoonSwatch just proves that yet again.